The theater was empty. Clara Vale noticed it the moment the curtain rose. Not quiet, not underfilled, empty. Every velvet seat inside the historic Bellwether Theater sat untouched beneath the gold balcony rails and dim chandelier light. The upper boxes were vacant. The orchestra level was a dark red sea of abandoned chairs. The side aisles, where wealthy donors usually whispered behind champagne breath and opera gloves, stood silent as a church after a funeral. Except for one man. He sat alone in the center row. Black suit, black overcoat folded over the seat beside him. One hand resting calmly on the carved armrest, the other holding no program, no phone, no glass of champagne. He watched Clara as if the entire theater had been built only to frame her. Even from the stage, even through the distance and glare, she felt the cold focus of his eyes. Dante Moretti. She knew his name the way everyone in Philadelphia knew it. Softly, fearfully, never too loudly in public. He owned restaurants that never advertised, private security firms that never lost contracts, nightclubs no one entered without being seen, warehouses along the Delaware River with lights that stayed on until dawn. Politicians smiled beside him at charity dinners. Judges pretended not to notice his cars outside courthouses. Men who owed him money disappeared from their own lives without leaving blood behind. And somehow, on the most important night of Clara's career, he had bought every single seat. She nearly missed her first mark. Pain flared behind her right knee as she landed, hot and precise, like a knife opening slowly beneath the skin. She forced her face into softness. Ballerinas were trained to suffer beautifully, smile through blood, float through injury. Make the audience believe the body had no weight, no damage, no history. Tonight, there was no audience to fool, only him. Dante Moretti leaned forward slightly, as if he had felt the pain with her. Clara hated him for seeing it. She lifted her chin, turned into the light, and danced harder. The music rose from the orchestra pit in aching strings. She became Giselle, betrayed and breaking, her white skirt moving like fog around her legs. The Bellwether stage was old wood beneath her slippers, scarred by decades of women who had given their bodies to beauty and been forgotten when they could no longer turn without pain. This was supposed to be Clara's last chance. One final lead role before the surgeons opened her knee and told her what she already knew. One final night before the company replaced her with a younger girl whose tendons had not yet learned disappointment. One final performance to prove she had been more than a pretty body men with money thought they could own. She saw Dante still watching. A memory stabbed through her concentration. Another wealthy man, another private room, another hand closing around her wrist 5 years ago. You should be grateful, Clara. Girls like you don't get patronage without giving something back. Her breath caught. No, not tonight. She leapt. For one suspended second, she was above pain, above fear, above every man who had ever mistaken access for ownership. Then the backstage wing exploded. The blast tore through the theater like a thunderclap from underground. Orange light burst behind the curtains. The set wall shuddered. A painted tree split down the middle. Smoke rolled across the stage floor as dancers screamed from somewhere beyond the wings. Clara landed wrong. Her knee buckled. She heard the crack inside her own body before she felt it. The stage tilted. The chandelier blurred. Her hands reached for air. And then Dante Moretti was on the stage. No hesitation. No visible panic. One moment he was in the audience. The next, he had crossed the orchestra pit and vaulted onto the stage like a man entering war. Men in black suits flooded from the aisles behind him, but he reached her first. Another sharp sound cut through the smoke. A bullet. Dante's body jerked before Clara hit the floor. He caught her anyway. His arms closed around her, hard and unshaking. His blood spread across the front of her white costume, hot through the thin fabric, blooming red over her ribs like a terrible flower. Clara stared up at him, stunned by the weight of him, the smell of smoke and iron, the calm fury in his face. "You're bleeding," she whispered. His hand tightened at the back of her head, pressing her face against his chest as another bullet struck the wooden floor where she had been falling. "No," he said. his voice low and cold against her hair. "They missed you." The emergency lights flashed red. Somewhere backstage, someone screamed her name. Dante looked over Clara's shoulder toward the darkness beyond the stage, and every man near him went still. "Lock the exits," he ordered. "No one leaves this theater alive unless I know who sent them." Clara tried to push away, but her knee gave out, and pain ripped a sound from her throat she could not swallow. For the first time, Dante looked down at her, as if his control had fractured. Not softened, fractured. "Don't move," he said. "I need to get up. You need to breathe. I need to know why the theater is empty." His eyes held hers. For a second, there was only smoke, blood, and the ruined music still trembling from the orchestra pit. Then he said, "Because I bought every seat to keep them away from you." Clara's vision blurred. "What?" Dante lifted her into his arms as if she weighed nothing. His blood soaked into her costume. Her injured leg hung uselessly, every movement a white flare of agony. As he carried her through the smoke, past shattered scenery and fallen chandeliers, Clara saw something that made no sense. On the back wall behind the torn curtain, painted over in black soot, someone had written her name. Not Clara Vale, a different name, a name she had never seen before. Aurora. Then the smoke swallowed it. By morning, Dante Moretti owned the Bellwether Theater. He bought it before sunrise through 3 shell companies, 2 emergency board votes, and 1 private conversation with a city councilman who resigned before lunch. By 10 a.m., every contract connected to the production had been frozen. By noon, the ballet company's donors received letters informing them that all performances had been canceled indefinitely. By 3, the front doors of the theater were guarded by armed men wearing no badges and answering no questions. Clara found out from a hospital bed. She woke under white lights with her right leg braced and elevated, an IV in her arm, and 2 large men standing outside the glass door of her private room. Rain streaked the high windows. Philadelphia looked gray beyond the glass. Wet rooftops, old brick, traffic moving through the city, as if her entire life had not detonated 12 hours earlier. Her costume was gone. Someone had washed the blood from her skin. Dante's blood. She remembered his face above hers, the warmth of it spreading across her ribs, the way he had said they missed you, as if being shot himself was a technical inconvenience. Clara tried to sit up. Pain tore through her knee so violently that tears sprang to her eyes. The door opened before she could make a sound. Dante walked in. He wore a black suit beneath a dark wool coat, his left shoulder bandaged under the fabric. He moved like a man who refused permission to be injured. There was no weakness in his posture, no medicine in his eyes, only control. Clara hated that her heart reacted before her mind did. "You bought my theater," she said. "It was never yours. It was more mine than yours. Not anymore." She stared at him. He set a sealed paper bag on the table beside her bed. Inside, she saw her phone, wallet, apartment keys, and a crushed silver hairpin she had worn during the performance. "You went through my things. You have no right. I have every right if someone used your phone to track you." Clara's anger faltered. Dante took her phone out, tapped the screen, and turned it toward her. A tiny black device, smaller than a grain of rice, had been taped beneath the case. Her stomach dropped. That could have been from anyone. "It was placed there 3 weeks ago. How would you know that?" His silence answered too much. Clara's pulse began to climb. "You've been watching me." Dante did not deny it. The rain hit the window harder. Clara looked toward the men outside her door, then back at him. "Am I a patient or a prisoner?" "That depends on whether you try to run." Her laugh came out sharp and humorless. "You are exactly what I thought you were. And what is that?" "A man who thinks fear is the same as protection." Something moved behind his eyes. Not guilt. Something darker. Older. "Fear keeps people alive." "No," Clara said. "Fear keeps people obedient." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The room filled with the steady beeping of the monitor, the rain, the soft hum of machines keeping track of her fragile body, while Dante Moretti stood at the foot of her bed, like a threat carved from marble. He looked at her knee brace. The surgeon says the ligament damage is severe. You will need reconstruction. Clara looked away before he could see what that did to her. She had known. Somewhere between the bad landing and the pain, she had known. But hearing it spoken out loud felt like watching a door close from the inside. My career is over, she said quietly. Dante's jaw tightened. The explosion was not aimed at the theater, he said. It was aimed at you. Clara turned back. No. Yes. I'm a dancer. You are not just a dancer. I don't know what that means. I know. His calm made it worse. Clara gripped the blanket until her knuckles whitened. Then, explain it. He stepped closer. The room seemed to shrink around him. Your name is not Clara Vale. Cold moved through her body faster than fear. My name is Clara Vale. That is the name given to you when you were placed under protection. I was never under protection. You were 4 years old. Her throat tightened. Something about the number hit a locked room inside her. 4. A train station. Rain. A woman crying into her hair. A man's voice saying, "Don't let her dance under her real name. Promise me." No. Clara pushed the memory away. My mother died of pneumonia when I was a child, she said. My foster records are sealed because the system is a nightmare. That doesn't mean... Your mother did not die of pneumonia. Stop. She was murdered inside the Bellwether Theater. Stop. Her name was Lucia Bellini. The monitor beside Clara began beeping faster. She knew that name. Everyone in Philadelphia Ballet knew that name. Lucia Bellini had been a legend. A principal dancer who vanished after a fire at the Bellwether 23 years ago. Some said she ran away to Europe. Some said she jumped into the river. Some said a man had killed her because beauty made men insane. Clara had watched old videos of Lucia in secret, studied her hands, her turns, her impossible stillness. She had once cried, because the woman's dancing felt familiar in a way she couldn't explain. Dante looked at her with a controlled intensity that felt almost cruel. You are her daughter. The room tilted. Clara shook her head. No. Yes. No. Your birth name is Aurora Bellini Moretti. Her breath stopped. Moretti. The name struck harder than the explosion. Dante's name. She stared at him with horror rising through her. He saw it, and his expression turned colder, as if coldness was the only thing keeping something dangerous from breaking loose. I am not your blood, he said. My uncle Gabriel was your father. Clara could not speak. Her whole life, she had built herself from fragments. Foster homes, dance studios, cheap apartments, thrift store sweaters, the sound of rain through bad windows, the ache of proving she belonged somewhere. Now Dante stood in her hospital room and tore the foundation out from under every memory she had. If that were true, she whispered, why tell me now? Because last night, someone found proof that you survived. Who? Dante's mouth hardened. Cyrus Havelock. The name entered the room like perfume hiding poison. Cyrus Havelock was Philadelphia royalty. Old money, museum boards, ballet galas, hospital wings with his name engraved in bronze. The man who appeared in every program note under lead benefactor. The man who shook hands with dancers, kissed donors on both cheeks, and paid for Clara's physical therapy after her first injury. The man who had once trapped her inside a private rehearsal room and told her no one would believe a girl who needed his money. Clara felt sick. Dante saw the recognition before she could hide it. What did he do to you? He asked. His voice stayed quiet. That was what terrified her. Not rage, not yelling, quiet. Clara looked at the rain, her jaw locked. Nothing I couldn't survive. Dante moved with the door. Where are you going? To correct that. No. Clara forced herself upright despite the pain. No. You don't get to walk out of here and murder someone because you guessed at my trauma. Dante turned back slowly. I don't guess. The words landed between them. Clara understood then that he knew. Maybe not all of it, maybe not the way humiliation lived in the skin long after the hand was gone, but enough. She felt exposed in a way that had nothing to do with the hospital gown, or the guards, or the IV taped to her hand. You had me investigated, she said. I had you protected. Do not dress obsession as mercy. His eyes held hers. I have done many things for you that were not merciful." A chill moved through her. Before she could respond, one of the guards opened the door. Dante did not look away from Clara. "What?" The guard's voice was low. "The ambulance entrance. 2 men dressed as orderlies. Suppressed weapons." Clara's blood turned cold. Dante looked at her then, and the controlled distance between them vanished. "Do not move," he said. The lights went out. For 3 seconds, the room was black, except for rain flashing against the windows and the red pulse of backup emergency strips along the floor. Then gunfire broke, somewhere down the hall. Clara's body reacted before thought. She ripped the IV from her arm and swung her legs over the bed. Pain exploded through her knee, but terror shoved her upright. Dante crossed the room, caught her around the waist, and pulled her against him, just as the glass door shattered. He turned, shielding her with his body. The sound of bullets striking walls was impossibly loud in the dark. Clara smelled his cologne, clean and expensive beneath gun smoke. His hand pressed against the back of her head, firm but not crushing, forcing her face into the hollow below his shoulder. She could feel the bandage beneath his suit, where he had been shot, saving her. He was bleeding again. "Dante," she whispered. His mouth was near her ear. "You say my name like you trust me." "I don't." "Good." He lifted her. She wanted to protest, but another shot tore through the monitor, and sparks burst across the room. Dante carried her through a side door into a service corridor, where more of his men moved like shadows with guns held low. He did not run. He moved fast, controlled, his body between her and every open angle. At the end of the corridor, an elevator waited with its doors already open. Clara saw a hospital security officer lying on the floor, alive but bleeding from the head. Her stomach twisted. "This is because of me," she said. Dante stepped into the elevator with her in his arms. "This is because men with power fear losing it." The doors closed. For the first time since the theater, Clara saw a streak of blood slide from beneath his bandage and disappear under his collar. "You need a doctor. I need you alive. You're not invincible." His eyes dropped to her mouth for less than a second. "No," he said. "I'm motivated." The elevator descended into darkness. Dante took her to a house that did not exist on any map Clara could find. It stood outside the city, beyond a road lined with winter trees, iron gates, and security cameras hidden among bare branches. The mansion was old stone and black windows, more fortress than home. Inside it smelled of cedar, leather, candle wax, and rain. Clara was placed in a bedroom larger than her entire apartment. A doctor examined her knee. A nurse changed her bandages. A silent woman with silver hair brought soup Clara refused to eat, until Dante left the room. He did not leave. He stood near the fireplace, one arm folded across his chest, watching the doctor inspect the brace around Clara's leg. "She needs rest," the doctor said carefully, as if every word had to pass through Dante's temper first. "No pressure on the knee, no stress, no—" Clara laughed. Everyone looked at her. "No stress," she repeated. "That should be simple. I'm only being hunted by a billionaire arts patron while recovering in a mafia boss's mansion after learning my entire identity is fake." The doctor looked at Dante. Dante looked at the doctor. The doctor closed his bag. "I'll be downstairs." When they were alone, Clara stared into the fire. "You should have told me sooner." "Yes." The admission surprised her. She looked at him. Dante stood very still. "I thought keeping you ignorant made you safer. That is what men say when they want control without accountability." His mouth tightened. "You think I wanted this? I think you bought every seat in a theater and had me watched. I bought those seats because Havelock's men had already purchased 6 under false names." Clara's anger hesitated. Dante walked to the desk, picked up a folder, and placed it beside her. Inside were photographs, men in tuxedos, seat assignments, blueprints of the bellwether, a delivery schedule for stage equipment, and photos of Clara, leaving rehearsal, buying coffee, walking home in the rain, sitting on the floor of her apartment with ice wrapped around her knee. Her skin went cold. You took these. My men took some. Havelock's men took the rest. She sorted through the stack with shaking fingers. One photo showed her sleeping, taken through the window of her apartment. Clara dropped it as if it burned her. Dante's face darkened. That photographer is dead. She looked up sharply. I don't want to know that. You needed to know he cannot come back. You don't get to make murder sound like a gift. No, Dante said. I make it sound like a warning. The fire cracked between them. Clara should have been afraid. She was afraid. But beneath that fear was something more complicated. Something she hated herself for feeling. The world had hunted her without her knowledge. Men with polite smiles had written violence into her life before she ever understood the language of power. And Dante Moretti, monster or not, had stepped in front of bullets meant for her. That did not make him safe. It made him dangerous, in a direction she could understand. Why do you care if I live? She asked. His eyes met hers. For a moment, she thought he might answer honestly. Instead, he said, because your death would start a war. She swallowed the sting of disappointment before she understood why it hurt. So I'm political. You are valuable. I am a person. His face changed then, barely. Yes, he said. That is the problem. The next morning, Clara tried to escape. She waited until the nurse left, until the hallway went quiet, until the sky beyond the windows turned pale with early winter light. Then she wrapped a black coat over her nightgown, tucked her injured leg carefully, and used a brass fireplace poker as a crutch. The mansion was silent, but not empty. She passed closed doors, oil portraits, a dining room long enough to hold ghosts, and a marble staircase watched by cameras tucked into carved corners. Every beautiful thing in the house felt chosen by someone who did not believe beauty should comfort. Clara made it as far as the east corridor before she found the room. The door stood slightly open. Inside, the walls were covered with her. Not recent surveillance photos. Older things. Newspaper clippings from ballet competitions when she was 12. A school photo from 7th grade. A copy of her first company contract, medical bills paid anonymously. A picture of her at 19 standing outside the bellwether, holding flowers after a small role no critic had reviewed. And in the center of the wall, under glass, was a photograph of Lucia Bellini, Clara's mother. The resemblance was undeniable. Same cheekbones, same long neck, same dark, haunted eyes. Clara stepped into the room as if entering someone else's grief. On the desk lay a small pair of pink ballet slippers, old and yellowed with age. A child's size. Her name was written inside one ribbon. Aurora. The floor seemed to move beneath her. You were not meant to see this yet. Dante stood in the doorway. Clara turned on him, heart hammering. How long? She asked. His silence was answer enough. How long have you had this room? 8 years. 8 years? You were injured during a performance in New York. Havelock sent flowers. I recognized the name on the card. You recognized a donor's name. So you built a shrine? I recognized the man who ordered your mother killed. Clara's breath shook. The fireplace poker slipped from her hand and hit the floor with a sharp metallic sound. Dante did not move toward her. That restraint almost hurt worse. You have been watching my life for 8 years, she said. Paying bills, hiding cameras, killing men, buying seats, standing outside my world like some god deciding what I'm allowed to know. Yes. The honesty struck her harder than denial would have. Clara's eyes burned. You don't love someone by turning them into a secret. Dante's expression went still. I never said this was love. No, you wouldn't. That would make it human. Something flashed across his face. She had finally cut him. Good. She needed him wounded somewhere she could see it. Clara limped toward the door, but he blocked it without touching her. Move. No. Dante. His name came out furious and shaking. His eyes lowered to her mouth again, then away. You cannot leave this house. Because Havelock wants me dead? Because if I let you walk out angry, you will make a reckless decision just to prove I don't control you. I don't need your permission to be reckless. No, he said softly. You need someone willing to survive the consequences with you. The words stole some of the air between them. For one dangerous second, he looked less like a captor and more like a man standing at the edge of confession, holding himself back with both hands. Clara hated that she noticed. She hated that when he stepped closer, her body remembered him catching her before it remembered he had lied. He stopped, inches away. Did not touch her. His hand lifted as if he meant to brush a loose strand of hair from her cheek. Then his fingers closed into a fist, and he lowered it. Your mother left something hidden inside the bellwether, he said. Proof. Names. Accounts. Enough to destroy Havelock and half the men he owns. Then get it. I can't. Why? Because she built the lock around you. Clara stared at him. Dante looked toward the glass case holding the child's slippers. Lucia knew they would come for the money, for the theater, for the ledger, so she tied everything to her daughter's bloodline. The trust, the sealed accounts, the evidence. It can only be opened by Aurora Moretti. My name is Clara. Not to the law. I don't want a mafia inheritance. It is not just inheritance. What is it? Dante's eyes hardened. A weapon. The public scandal broke before sunset. Someone leaked a photo from the hospital security cameras. Dante Moretti carrying Clara through smoke, her white costume soaked in his blood, his face lowered over hers, as if the rest of the world had ceased to matter. The headlines were merciless. Mafia King buys Ballet house after ballerina attack. Dante Moretti's mystery woman. Blood on the stage. Romance, revenge, or war. Who is Clara Vale? By evening, every gossip channel in America had turned her trauma into speculation. Was she his mistress? His hostage? His secret fiancé? Had the explosion been staged? Had the ballet been a front? Had Clara slept her way into protection? She sat in Dante's library with a tablet in her lap, watching strangers tear her apart in comment sections. Dante took the tablet from her hands and threw it into the fireplace. Clara stared at the flames. That was not yours. I'll buy you another. That is not the point. You were hurting yourself. I was reading. You were bleeding without a wound. The anger in her chest tangled with exhaustion. You don't get to decide what I can handle. Dante stood over the fire, his face lit in gold and shadow. No, he said, but I get to decide how the world speaks about you. An hour later, he called a press conference. Clara learned about it when the television in the library switched on by itself. Dante stood on the steps of the Bellwether Theater in the rain, black coat buttoned, armed men spaced behind him. Reporters shouted questions. Camera flashes turned the wet pavement silver. The theater marquee still read Giselle, though half the letters had gone dark. Dante did not raise his voice. Clara Vale is under my protection, he said. Any person who approaches her without permission will answer to me. Any outlet that publishes lies about her will answer to my attorneys first, and me second. The reporters erupted. Is she your girlfriend? Was she the target? Did you buy the theater for her? Are you engaged? Dante paused. Clara stood from the couch, dread rising. On screen, his eyes seemed to find the camera as if he knew exactly where she was watching from. She is not available for speculation, he said. Then, after one cold second, he added, and she is not available to any man but me. Clara's mouth fell open. The room went silent. The reporters exploded louder than before. Dante turned and walked back into the theater without answering another question. Clara was waiting in the foyer when he returned to the mansion. She had changed into black leggings, a loose sweater, and fury. You told the entire country I belong to you. Dante removed his gloves slowly. I told our enemies you are protected. No. You told them I'm claimed. Yes. She stepped closer despite her limp. I am not a territory. No, he said. You are bait. The word hit like a slap. Dante saw it. For one moment, something like regret crossed his face. Clara's voice dropped. Explain that before I throw something expensive at your head. Havelock needs you isolated, discredited, afraid. If he kills you while the world thinks you are random, the story dies in 2 days. If he moves against you now, it becomes an attack on me. So you used me. I made you too public to disappear quietly. You could have asked. You would have refused. Yes, and you would be dead. She turned away, because the worst part was that he might be right. Dante approached, but stopped before touching her. I will let the world hate me before I let it bury you. Clara closed her eyes. You don't get to say things like that after lying to me. I have lied to keep you breathing. Do you know how many men have used that sentence before hurting women? His silence changed. Heavy, immediate. Clara opened her eyes. Dante looked at her with a darkness so controlled it felt lethal. I am not Havelock. No, she whispered. But sometimes control sounds the same in every man's mouth. He flinched, only slightly, but she saw it. That night, he did not come to dinner. The next day, Clara met the boy. She found him in the conservatory, sitting beneath a lemon tree with a book open on his lap and a security guard pretending not to watch him from the doorway. He was maybe 6 years old, with dark curls, solemn eyes, and a serious little face that looked too old for him. He looked up when Clara entered. You're the ballerina. Clara leaned on her crutch. I used to be. My uncle says you'll still be one even if you never dance again. Her chest tightened. Your uncle? Dante. Clara looked toward the guard. The man looked away. The boy closed his book. I'm Leo. Hi, Leo. Are you trapped here too? The question broke something soft and painful inside her. Clara lowered herself carefully onto the bench across from him. It feels like that sometimes. Leo nodded, as if this confirmed a private theory. My mom said safe houses are just cages with nicer furniture. Clara stilled. Where is your mom? The boy looked down at his book. She died. I'm sorry. Uncle Dante killed the men who did it. The words were said with a child's blunt acceptance. No drama, no horror, just fact. Clara swallowed. Was she Dante's sister? Leo nodded. Her name was Sophia. She danced too, but not like you. She danced in the kitchen when she thought nobody saw. Clara smiled despite herself. Leo studied her. Are you going to marry him? Clara choked. No. That's good. Good? He gets scary when he likes people. Clara's smile faded. Does he like people often? No. The conservatory doors opened. Dante stood there. For the first time since Clara had met him, he looked uncertain. Not weak, not gentle, just caught. Leo, he said, your tutor is waiting. The boy slid off the bench, tucked the book under his arm, and walked past Dante. At the door, he stopped and looked back at Clara. You should make him say sorry. He never does unless people make him. Then he left. Clara looked at Dante. Secret child? She asked softly. My nephew. Hidden from who? Everyone. Because of Havelock? Because of men like Havelock. And men like me. That answer held more truth than Clara expected. Dante walked to the window overlooking the winter garden. Sophia wanted out, he said. She married a federal witness. They had Leo. Havelock found out she had documents tied to the Bellwether Trust. He sent men to take her. She died, getting Leo through a back door. Clara's anger loosened into something more complicated. I'm sorry. Dante did not turn. I buried her on a Tuesday. On Wednesday, I became what my father always wanted. A monster? A useful one. The silence after that felt intimate, in a way Clara did not know how to refuse. She saw then that Dante's control was not emptiness. It was architecture built around grief. Every locked door, every guard, every command was a wall he had constructed after losing someone he loved. That did not excuse him, but it made him harder to hate. Leo said you get scary when you like people. Dante turned slightly. Leo talks too much. He also said I should make you apologize. A faint shadow of something almost like a smile touched his mouth and vanished. He is dangerous. So are you. Yes. Clara waited. Dante looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, I am sorry I made the world think it owned a piece of you. Her breath caught. The apology was not polished, not romantic, not enough. But from Dante Moretti, it felt like blood drawn from stone. Clara nodded once. Don't do it again. His eyes held hers. I will do worse if it keeps you alive. Her heart sank. There he was. Still honest. Still impossible. Then your apology has limits. So does my morality. Clara should have walked away. Instead, she asked, "And what about your loyalty?" Dante stepped closer, slowly. The air shifted. "My loyalty," he said, "is the one thing I do not limit." He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could see the tiredness beneath his eyes, close enough to smell rain on his coat and smoke in the wool, close enough for her body to remember being held by him as bullets tore through glass. His hand lifted. This time, Clara did not move away. His fingers hovered near her cheek, not touching, waiting. That restraint made her pulse ache. Then a phone rang. Dante's expression closed. He stepped back and answered. Clara watched him listen. Whatever he heard turned him back into winter. "When?" he asked. A pause. His eyes moved to Clara. "Send me the image." He lowered the phone. Clara knew before he spoke that another wall in her life had just collapsed. "What happened?" she asked. Dante turned the screen toward her. A photograph filled it. Her apartment door, broken open. Inside, every wall had been covered in red paint. One sentence repeated over and over. "Aurora comes home, or the boy dies. Leo." Clara's blood went cold. Havelock did not wait for invitations. 2 nights later, he appeared on national television. Cyrus Havelock sat beneath studio lights, wearing a charcoal suit and a grieving expression so elegant it could have been commissioned. Behind him played footage of the bellwether explosion, the hospital attack, Dante's press conference, Clara collapsing in his blood. He spoke softly. That was his gift. Violent men who screamed looked like villains. Cyrus spoke like a philanthropist, disappointed by the world. "I have known Clara Vale for years," he said. "She is a talented young woman, but vulnerable, injured, isolated. It pains me deeply to see her exploited by organized crime." Clara watched from Dante's library, ice pressed against her knee, rage making her hands shake. Dante stood behind her chair. On screen, Cyrus looked directly into the camera. "If Clara can hear me," he continued, "I want her to know the doors of the bellwether are open to her. She does not need to be afraid. She does not need to hide behind Dante Moretti. There are people who truly care about her." Clara's skin crawled. Dante reached over her shoulder and turned off the television. "He wants me to come to him," she said. "Yes. Because of the trust. Because he believes you can open it." "Can I?" Dante hesitated. Clara looked up. "Do not lie to me again." He sat across from her. The room felt different when Dante sat. Less like command, more like confession. "The bellwether trust requires 3 things," he said. "Your biometric confirmation, Lucia's original performance key, and the passphrase she left with the trustee. I don't have any of those. You are the biometric confirmation." Clara's stomach tightened. "And the key." Dante reached into his pocket. He placed the crushed silver hairpin on the table between them. Clara recognized it from the hospital bag. "My hairpin? It was your mother's. The crystal at the top opens." Clara picked it up carefully. The metal was warped from the explosion, but when she pressed the tiny hinge, the head split open to reveal a sliver of engraved gold inside. Not jewelry, a key. Her hand trembled. "I wore this for every performance. I know. How? Because I made sure it reached you." She looked at him. Dante's jaw flexed. "When you were 16, your foster mother sold a box of old dance things after she lost her job. One of my men bought it back. I returned the pin through your ballet mistress." Clara stared at the tiny key. Her life had not been a straight line. It had been a maze Dante kept entering in secret. "You manipulated everything. I preserved what mattered. You decided what mattered." His gaze dropped. Yes, the truth exhausted her. She set the hairpin down. "What is the passphrase?" Dante looked toward the window, where rain blurred the dark glass. "We don't know." Clara laughed once, bitterly. "So Havelock is trying to kill me for a vault I can't open. He believes you know it subconsciously. What does that mean?" "It means your mother may have given it to you before she died." Clara closed her eyes. Memories flashed in broken pieces. Rain, a train station, pink slippers, a woman's arms, a whisper against her ear. Do not let them make you dance for monsters. No, there was more. A song. Not music exactly, a phrase set to rhythm. When the swan falls, Clara whispered. Dante went very still. She opened her eyes. What? His face had changed completely. When the swan falls, he repeated carefully. What comes next? Clara's pulse thundered. I don't know. Yes, you do. No, I don't. Clara. The way he said her chosen name, not Aurora, not a legal weapon, not an inheritance, made something inside her tremble. She pressed her fingers to her temples. When the swan falls, she whispered again. A woman's voice came from the dark behind her memory. When the swan falls, the wolf kneels. Clara's breath left her. Dante stood slowly. What did you say? She looked up at him, shaken. When the swan falls, the wolf kneels. Dante's face turned pale in a way she had not thought possible. That was my father's crest, he said. The wolf. Clara's heart beat hard. My mother knew your family would come? No, Dante said. She knew one of us would kneel instead of kill. The words settled between them with a strange and terrible intimacy. Clara thought of the stage, of her collapsing in his blood, of Dante kneeling over her while the empty theater watched. The passphrase had already happened before she remembered it. The next evening, Clara made her decision. I want to open the trust, she said. Dante looked up from the papers spread across his desk. No, you said I'm the only one who can. I said you are the key. Not that I would put you in the lock. It's my mother's evidence. It is also a trap Havelock has waited 23 years to spring. Then we spring it first. No. Clara leaned on her crutch, anger heating through the ache in her leg. You don't get to lock me in this house while men destroy my name, threaten Leo, and keep my mother's murder buried. Dante's voice dropped. I will not deliver you to Havelock. I'm not asking you to deliver me. I'm asking you to stand beside me. His expression shifted. There it was again. That crack in the marble. Clara stepped closer. You said your loyalty has no limit. It doesn't. Then stop protecting me from my own life. The office went silent. Dante looked at her as if she had asked him to hand over his only weapon. Maybe she had. Finally, he said. The trust is held beneath the bellwether. Of course it was. The old theater. The ruined stage. The place where Lucia danced, died, and hid a war beneath velvet seats and gold trim. We go tonight, Clara said. Dante's eyes sharpened. We go when I say it is safe. Clara smiled without warmth. Then I'll go without you. You can barely walk. I crawled through worse rooms than yours. His jaw tightened. For one long second, Clara thought he might forbid her. Instead, Dante stood, crossed the room, and stopped in front of her. I will take you, he said. But if anything goes wrong, you do exactly what I say. No. His eyes flashed. Clara lifted her chin. I will listen if it makes sense. I will not obey just because you are scared. The word scared changed everything. Dante went still. Clara softened, just enough. You are, she said quietly. That's what this is. Not just control, fear. His face turned dangerous because she had named the wound. I am not afraid of Havelock. No. Clara's voice lowered. You're afraid of carrying another woman you failed to save. The silence after that was devastating. Dante looked away first. For the first time, he looked not defeated, but seen. When he spoke, his voice was almost too calm. If I lose you, he said, I will not remain civilized. Clara's heart stuttered. You barely are now. His eyes returned to hers. No, he said. For you, I try. The bellwether waited in the rain like a haunted palace. Police tape hung in wet strips across the entrance, but Dante's men removed it before Clara's door opened. Black SUVs lined the curb. Fog curled around the old marquee. The city lights reflected in puddles, turning every broken surface silver. Dante helped Clara out of the car. He did not lift her this time. He offered his arm. The difference mattered. Clara took it. Inside, the theater smelled of smoke, wet velvet, and old wood. The explosion had blackened one wing of the stage. The chandelier had been lowered for repairs, crystals wrapped in protective cloth like a sleeping animal. Every step Clara took echoed through the empty house. She looked at the center row. The seat where Dante had watched her was still marked with a small white evidence tag. "You sat there because you expected violence," she said. "I sat there because if you looked into the audience, I wanted you to see someone who would not run." The answer moved through her too deeply. She hated how much of him was made of terrible things and almost beautiful ones. Beneath the stage, they found the old dressing corridor Lucia had used. Dante's men searched ahead, while Clara moved slowly past cracked mirrors and dust-covered costume racks. Her reflection appeared and vanished in the glass. Pale face, dark hair, braced beneath black trousers. Not Giselle, not Aurora, not the girl Havelock had frightened into silence. Someone new. At the end of the hall stood a locked iron door with a small engraved swan above the handle. Dante inserted the gold key hidden in Clara's hairpin. The lock turned. Beyond it was a narrow chamber lined with safe deposit boxes. In the center stood an old biometric console, upgraded recently but built into stonework older than both of them. Dante looked at Clara. "No," she said, "I can't." She placed her hand on the scanner. The machine woke with a low hum. A female recorded voice filled the chamber, warped by age but unmistakably gentle. "Name." Clara closed her eyes. Her whole life stood behind her. Every fake paper, every foster room, every stage where she had danced like beauty could buy belonging. Then she opened her eyes. Aurora Ballet Moretti. Dante's breath shifted beside her. The machine beeped. Passphrase. Clara looked at him. The wolf kneels. She understood now why her mother had chosen it. Not because the Morettis were good. Because once, somewhere inside a house of wolves, Lucia had believed one man might lower himself to protect a child instead of devouring her. Clara spoke clearly. "When the swan falls, the wolf kneels." The chamber unlocked. Every box opened at once. Inside were ledgers, photographs, deeds, digital drives. Birth certificates, names of judges, donors, police commanders, brokers, shipping owners, and rival families. The history of Philadelphia's polite society, written in blood and money. And at the center, in a sealed envelope, was a letter, addressed to Aurora. Clara's hands shook as she opened it. "My little swan, if you are reading this, then beauty did not save us, but truth may still save you. I am sorry I could not give you an ordinary life. I am sorry your name became dangerous before you were old enough to spell it. Do not trust men because they love beautiful things. Trust only the ones who protect you when beauty costs them something. If the wolf kneels, let him rise changed. Your mother loves you beyond fear." Clara pressed the letter to her mouth. Dante stood beside her, silent, not claiming, not commanding, just there. Then the first shot struck the iron door. Dante moved instantly. He shoved Clara behind a stone column as bullets hammered through the corridor outside. His men returned fire. The chamber filled with smoke, and the deafening echo of gunfire trapped underground. Clara clutched the letter against her chest. Dante's hand closed around her wrist. "This way. There's no way out. There is always a way out." He pulled open a panel hidden behind a row of boxes, revealing a narrow service tunnel. Clara stared. "You knew." Lucia trusted wolves. She wasn't stupid. They moved into the tunnel as Havelock's men breached the chamber. Clara could hear shouting behind them. Dante's men firing, metal tearing. The sound of old secrets becoming modern war. The tunnel sloped upward beneath the theater. Clara's knee screamed with every step. Dante supported her without slowing, one arm around her waist, his body absorbing most of her weight. She could feel his restraint in every careful movement. He could have carried her. He wanted to. He didn't. That nearly undid her. They emerged behind the stage, just as the theater lights blazed on. Clara froze. The entire house was no longer empty. People filled the seats. Not an audience. Enemies. Men in suits occupied the orchestra level. Havelock's private security lined the aisles. Cameras stood on tripods near the back, recording everything. On stage, beneath the damaged chandelier, Cyrus Havelock waited, with Leo held beside him by a guard. The boy's face was pale but dry-eyed. Dante went deathly still. Cyrus smiled. "There she is," he said. "The dead girl finally takes a bow." Dante stepped in front of Clara. Cyrus sighed. "Predictable." "Let him go," Dante said. "No, I don't think I will." The guard tightened his grip on Leo's shoulder. Clara felt Dante's control thinning beside her, like wire pulled too tight. Cyrus looked at Clara with the same warm, poisonous expression he had worn years ago in the rehearsal room. "You have caused so much trouble, my dear." Clara's fear turned cold. "I was a child when you murdered my mother, and you grew into an inconvenience." Dante moved. Cyrus pressed a gun to Leo's head. The theater stopped breathing. "Another step," Cyrus said, "and the boy joins his mother." Dante froze. Clara saw what it cost him. Every violent instinct in his body chained by the child he loved. Cyrus turned to Clara. "The trust documents. The drives. Bring them here." Clara's hand tightened around the bag Dante had shoved over her shoulder in the tunnel. "Why record this?" she asked. Cyrus's smile widened. "Because Dante Moretti is going to murder you on camera after discovering you betrayed him. A tragic ending to a sordid little affair. The city will mourn, briefly." Dante's voice was low. "You will not leave this theater." Cyrus laughed softly. "My dear boy, I owned this theater before you were born." Clara looked at the stage, the broken wing, the lowered chandelier, the empty space where she had collapsed in Dante's blood. Her mother had died here. Her life had been hidden here. Her enemies had gathered here because they still believed she was only a dancer with a ruined knee and a frightened heart. Clara lowered her crutch. Dante glanced at her. She could feel his silent warning. "Don't." She stepped around him. The theater shifted. Guns lifted. Clara looked at Cyrus. "You want a performance?" Cyrus's expression flickered. Clara unzipped the bag and removed the drives. "Then watch closely." She threw the bag into the orchestra pit. At the same time, the massive stage curtain dropped. Dante moved like a released blade. The theater erupted. The curtain separated Cyrus from half his men. Dante's guards burst from the balcony boxes where they had been hidden all along. The cameras at the back turned, not off, but live. Every ledger, every name, every confession Cyrus had made while gloating into the stage microphones began streaming to federal servers and newsrooms. Dante had already prepared. Clara had not known that part. She realized then that Dante had trusted her decision and built a war around it. Gunfire shattered the chandelier. Crystals rained down like ice. Clara dropped to the floor as Dante crossed the stage toward Leo. Cyrus fired once, twice. Dante took the second shot in the side and kept moving. Leo bit the guard's hand. The guard loosened his grip. Clara grabbed the fallen crutch and swung with everything she had. It cracked against the guard's knee. He shouted and went down. Leo ran. Cyrus turned the gun toward Clara. Dante reached him first. The impact of Dante's body driving Cyrus into the stage floor shook the boards beneath Clara's hands. The gun skidded away. Cyrus gasped. Elegant mask gone, face twisted with fear. Dante's hand closed around his throat. The theater lights flickered. Clara saw the monster then. Not the rumor, not the crime boss. The real thing beneath Dante's control. Grief sharpened into violence. Love turned terrifying because it had nowhere safe to go. Cyrus clawed at his wrist. Dante squeezed. "Dante," Clara said. He did not hear her. Leo stood behind a fallen set piece, trembling. "Dante." Still nothing. Clara forced herself upright, pain tearing through her knee so brightly she nearly blacked out. She limped across the stage, grabbed Dante's blood-soaked sleeve, and pressed her forehead against his shoulder. "Let the wolf rise," changed, she whispered. Dante's hand froze. His breathing was harsh. His body shook with the effort not to finish what he had started. Clara held on. "Don't become his ending," she said. "Become mine." Slowly, Dante released Cyrus. Havelock collapsed, choking, alive. Police sirens wailed outside. Not bought police this time. Federal agents, reporters. The world Dante had dragged into position because Clara refused to hide. Dante turned toward her. Blood spread beneath his jacket. Clara touched his face with shaking fingers. "You're shot." His eyes searched hers as if the only wound that mattered was whether she was afraid of him. She was, but she did not step back. "You stopped me," he said. "You listened." He gave a faint, broken exhale that might have been a laugh in another life. Then his knees hit the stage. For the second time, the wolf knelt when the swan fell. But this time, Clara caught him. 3 months later, the bellwether reopened. Not as Havelock's monument. Not as a laundering house for men who applauded art while buying silence behind it. The new brass plaque outside the lobby read, "The Lucia Bellini Foundation, for dancers without protectors and artists no one gets to own." Clara stood beneath it on opening night with a cane in one hand and Dante Moretti beside her, silent and black. Her knee would never return to what it had been. The surgeon had been kind but honest. Clara would not dance Giselle again. Not the way she had. Not with the same jumps, the same turns, the same beautiful violence disguised as grace. For weeks, grief had hollowed her out. Dante did not try to fix it with money. That surprised her. He bought her the best doctors. He turned one wing of his mansion into a rehabilitation studio. He threatened one physical therapist only once, but he never told her what she should become instead. He never said, "At least you're alive." He never turned her loss into gratitude. Some nights, he simply sat outside the studio door while she cried where he could not see, or where he pretended not to. Leo now lived in the East Wing, and had decided Clara was the only adult in the house allowed to critique Dante's manners. He attended school under a new name, with 4 guards, and a lunchbox he hated. He left drawings in Clara's rehab room, wolves, swans, theaters, and once, a picture of Dante with very large fangs holding a bouquet. Clara framed that one. Cyrus Havelock awaited trial in federal custody. Half the city pretended they had barely known him. The other half hired lawyers. The leaked trust files tore through Philadelphia society like fire through lace. Dante's empire changed too. Not clean. Clara was not naive enough to believe love turned a dangerous man innocent. But he withdrew from the parts of his world that traded in human fear. He burned contracts, closed rooms, handed certain names to federal agents with no explanation except, "They touched what was mine." Clara hated that phrase. She also understood, slowly, that Dante was learning a new one, not mine to own, mine to protect, if she allows it. On the night of the reopening, the theater was full. Every seat had been sold except one. The center seat in row F remained empty, marked by a single white rose. Clara looked at it from the stage before the ceremony began. "For your mother?" Dante asked. "For the man who knelt." He glanced at her. That man almost killed Cyrus with his hands. That man stopped. "Because of you." "No," Clara said. "Because some part of you wanted to be stopped." Dante looked toward the empty seat. The chandeliers had been repaired, the stage restored, the red curtains replaced. But the old wood beneath Clara's feet still held every ghost. She no longer wore a white costume. Tonight she wore a black silk dress that left her shoulders bare and her scars visible. Not hidden, not softened, not explained away. Dante had gone very still when he saw her. He had not said beautiful. He had said, "No one will survive disrespecting you tonight," which, from him, meant beautiful. The ceremony passed in candlelight and applause. Clara spoke about Lucia, about stolen names, about dancers taught to smile through pain. Her voice shook once, but did not break. When she finished, the audience stood. For the first time in her life, applause did not feel like hunger. It felt like witness. Afterward, Clara found Dante alone on the darkened stage. The theater had emptied. Rain tapped softly against the high windows. Somewhere outside, black SUVs waited under streetlights, but inside the bellwether there was only gold shadow and quiet. Dante stood at center stage, looking out at the seats. "Strange," he said. "What is?" "The first time I saw you dance, I thought this place looked like a grave." Clara walked to him slowly. "And now," he looked at her, "now it looks like something survived." Her heart moved painfully. Dante reached into his coat and took out the silver hairpin. Repaired, polished. The tiny hidden key sealed safely inside. "I had this restored," he said. Clara accepted it, turning it in her fingers. "No more secrets inside jewelry," she said. "No more secrets you do not choose." She looked up at him. The difference mattered. Dante understood that now. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not gently, but with the fierce discipline of a man learning devotion in a language that did not come naturally to him. He stepped closer. "Clara," she smiled faintly. "Not Aurora? To the law, if necessary. To your enemies, if they need reminding. To me, you are Clara, because that is the name you built when everyone else tried to bury you." Her throat tightened. Outside, thunder rolled softly over Philadelphia. Dante lifted a hand toward her face and stopped, as he always did now, waiting for permission. Clara leaned into his palm. His control broke in silence. Only his eyes gave him away. "You terrify me," he said. Clara laughed softly. "I terrify you?" "Yes." Dante Moretti, feared by half the East Coast, is afraid of a retired ballerina with a cane? His thumb moved once along her cheekbone. "I am afraid of how little power I have when you hurt." "That's not love," she whispered. "That's fear." "I know." His voice lowered. "I am trying to learn the difference." Clara stepped closer until the space between them disappeared. "And what have you learned?" Dante looked at her as if every answer he had ever trusted was too violent for this room. Then he said, "Fear wants to lock the door. Love stands outside it and waits to be invited in." Clara closed her eyes. For months he had guarded her body, fought her enemies, lied, bled, knelt, and changed by inches that cost him more than grand gestures ever could. Now he stood on the stage where her life had ended and begun, offering no command, only himself. Clara rose on her toes, pain and all, and kissed him. Dante did not seize her. That was the miracle. For one breath, he went completely still, as if the softness of her mouth against his was more dangerous than any gun ever aimed at him. Then his hands settled carefully at her waist, reverent and restrained, holding her like something alive instead of something claimed. The kiss was not gentle exactly. Nothing about Dante was gentle without effort, but it was careful, devoted, trembling beneath control. When Clara pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. "I will still make mistakes," he said. "I know. I will still want to destroy anyone who makes you cry. I know that too. Will you stop me? When you need stopping." His mouth curved, almost a smile. "And when I need saving." Clara looked around the theater, at the repaired stage, the empty center seat, the place where blood had once soaked white fabric and turned a performance into a war. Then she looked back at the man who had bought every seat not to possess her applause, but because he had known death was coming, and wanted to be the only thing standing between her and the dark. "When you need saving," she said, "kneel." Dante took her hand. Slowly, in the center of the bellwether stage, beneath the chandelier and the ghosts and the rain-washed city, the most feared man in Philadelphia lowered himself to one knee before the woman he had once tried to protect with secrets. He pressed his forehead to her scarred hand, not as ownership, not as apology, as surrender. Clara looked down at him, no longer Giselle, no longer the hidden child, no longer the girl men thought they could use and discard. She was the woman who had survived the fall. And when the theater lights dimmed around them, Dante Moretti looked up at her, like devotion had finally become more powerful than fear. Outside, the city kept whispering his name. Inside, he only whispered hers.